listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is August 31st, 2025, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing this fine Sunday?
Well, Spencer Lowe, I'm doing well. It's a holiday weekend in the U.S. It's sort of the traditional end of summer here. So, just taking it easy. It's been a bit of a weird WoW week for me because I missed a raid night early in the season, which is unfortunate. But, sometimes schedules just don't line up. But it's been productive. And I got raid coming up. We're already about to look at Heroic Dementia. So good times. I was just bummed because I had to miss a raid night like week 3.
Yeah,
not ideal, but it just goes that way sometimes.
Yeah, I had to travel for work this past week, but that didn't stop me from getting my raid time in, fortunately. So last Sunday/Monday, my brain has to remember because we recorded on a weird day last week. So the last raid that we had, I was in, and we did our full clear of Heroic. And then went and did Mythic, and we got Mythic. We did full clear of Heroic and first 2 Mythic bosses on night 1, which felt really good. So then went in on night 2 and got Lumathar down. The big moth is knocked out, so we got that on Mythic, and then went to work on Araz. And so we got, I think, 10 or 11 pulls in on Araz, and we're seeing intermission, which is great. And there was some big conversation that happened after raid about different strategies and different things for that, which is always neat to see people pumped up and wanting to talk strategy even after raid about how they can improve or what things we could do differently going forward. So there's been a lot of conversation through the week on what can be improved on that fight, because Araz is kind of like the first real wall that you hit in a big way. And then after Araz, it seems like heading to Fractilis just makes sense because Fractilis is falling over for most teams. So that should be a pretty easy step for us after that. So we just want to be sure this week is as efficient as possible as we're back in there tonight. And I think we're hoping for, I imagine, doing a reduced Heroic. I think we're just doing 2 bosses in Heroic and then going right into doing Mythic. And so I think we're hoping tonight we get at least first 3 and time on Araz down tonight. And if not, killing Araz tonight. And then tomorrow becomes Fractilis into the next thing. So that'll be interesting to see what that all ends up looking like for us. But yeah, it's been a productive week outside of that. Did some Mythic Plus. Had got all my keys in again relatively quickly, which felt good. The Boomkin Mythic Plus thing is still in a weird space because it is still a situation where you're relying on a lot of RNG for your damage. And that just feels weird because the RNG is like, sometimes it's good, but most of the time it's not good at all. Sometimes you have no procs at all for your tier set. And this is me talking about specifically the Alloons build for Mythic Plus and casting Starfires in order to get stacks of your tier set bonus. I'm finding like 1 in 3 of the tier set bonus procs that I get is actually having stacks in it. And that's really unfortunate. Where like, what you'd want is like an average, like this thing stacks up to 6 times. It lasts 15 seconds. And in 15 seconds, sometimes you just don't get another stack. And so you just aren't able to roll it in any way. So you'll have some pulls that feel really good and then a couple pulls that feel really bad. And then some pulls that feel really good and a couple pulls that feel really, it's weird in how they're doing that. So I do think they need to look at Boomkins in general and give them some buffs. But I think the that particular tier set is just feeling really wonky and weak. And I'd rather them like make it stack 5 times as opposed to 6, but proc 30% more often. Like that would feel good because I think you'd actually see some balancing happening there, which would be nice. So yeah, I think that would be a nice little swapperoo they could do with that to make Boomkin feel more fun. And then yeah, I was traveling for work, like I said. So outside of that, a little bit of delving here and there. There's a particular healing trinket that's kind of popping off inside Delves at the moment that I imagine will get nerfed. I cannot believe that Blizzard would not have their eyes on it. For the healers out there who are curious, this is the Twisted Mana Sprite that is doing 8 to 12% of people's healing in keys and in raid when they're using it. You shouldn't have a 704 eye level trinket doing 8 to 12% of your healing. as a healer ever. That just isn't a thing unless it's like off of one of the final raid bosses, and it's, you know, obviously leveled up quite high. So to have a champion track maxed out trinket that you can buy off of a Dell vendor doing that is surprising. So I would expect nerfs to that thing, but it is something where, hey, if you want to take advantage of it now, it's 2,000 undercoin. It's not like it's expensive. Run some delves. Hopefully the vendor spawns with the trinkets you want on him, because now he seems to not be spawning with all of the trinkets, but he's spawning with some of the pool every time you do a delve, which I thought was a weird change that they came in and did, because definitely the first few times I saw him spawning in, he was spawning in with like multiple pages of trinkets, and now he's spawning in with 6. So I don't really know what happened there, but there was definitely a change that happened there. So yeah, that's something for people to look out for, is that Twisted Mana Sprite. But that's, I mean, a little bit of racing I was doing today. Rob, my wife, and I were both doing some of the Eastern Kingdom race to get some tokens to buy some of the new rewards, which we'll talk about a bit later in the show. But that's basically been my week in WoW. There's been a lot going on outside of that.
Yeah, so I think when we spoke last, I still had not. Yeah, it was Thursday last week, right?
Yeah, Thursday, yeah.
So Sunday we hopped in, and actually we had like 2 pulls very late on Wednesday on Heroic Fractilis, and it was like 13%, 11% wipes or whatever, just on our first 2 polls. So I think it was 1 poll on Sunday last week. You know, Downey got the prog kill, and then we had the rest of the night to look at Nexus King, which is a really cool fight for a second to last boss. I really like it, especially compared to Muggsy. You know, it's I feel like it's a lot less stress, a lot less kind of responsibility in terms of setup and directing traffic on the raid leader. So I liked it in that regard. We were making kind of an error with the strat we were trying to do, where our positioning was kind of backwards, which was making the last phase really difficult, where the stars rotate around. If you lock that positioning in and you get kind of the melee tunes with the debuff on the one side of the semicircle and the range on the other side, they kind of just rotate away from the group, and you get a nice pocket to hang out there and line up your lasers to blow up the stars. So we were doing that kind of backwards on Sunday. We were getting there. We're getting to phase 3 by the end of the night, and we had like, I don't know, a couple pulls into phase 3, but we're getting really kind of stymied by the star mechanic. So, you know, we had to come back for that this week.
I will say, depending on where you place those, you can create some of the most pretty, like, Celtic patterns you could possibly imagine, with circles overlapping circles to create these really beautiful patterns as they expand outwards. It's just like props to whoever designed that mechanic, because you're generating something that looks really cool.
Yeah, visually it's a super cool effect. I mean, that whole fight has some really cool visuals. But yeah, so that's where we left off last raid week. This week I knew it was going to be out Wednesday, so normally what we've been doing is normal full clear to start the week, grab as many people as we can, just try to get it down fast, get, you know, the Omni tokens out, get people shots at trinkets or whatever. We decided to reverse that because, you know, it's not normal is not a big challenge for our team, and I knew somebody could step in and, you know, tank for me while I was out. So we did Heroic on Tuesday, and we ended up, I think we basically just one-shot everything up to Nexus King, which was awesome. And then we still had a good half hour. It took, I don't know, just another couple pulls from there to get the prog on Nexus King. So that was awesome. You know, we had like 1 pull on Heroic Dimensius, and we ran out of time. We were like, let's just go get killed by it, and then we'll come back. I think Wednesday they did normal, and then they spent some time on Heroic Dimensius. So tonight we'll take another look at it. I don't really have any expectation that it's going to die this week. That would be absurdly early for us too. I mean, we're an AOTC focused team, and we'll do Mythic. I want to go farther into Mythic if I can keep the enthusiasm up, because Soul Hunters has such cool loot that I think people are going to want. So if we can get the polls in, you know, I feel like we could maybe, that's a long-term goal. It's tough with a casual Mythic team, because you don't know like what the end of the tier is, right? It kind of depends on overall tuning. It really depends on the temperature of the team. If people are showing up and they want to do it, then you kind of go as far as you can get with the time that you have. Last season, we didn't get as far as I felt like we could have, but there was no enthusiasm. And it's like, I'm not going to recruit people into this. So I'm hoping that if we can keep the momentum going, that we'll go farther this time. But, you know, that's always kind of the weird balance for me. But I don't, a week 3 AOTC would be kind of ridiculous. I think that might actually be kind of bad for us, because then I might really start having people drop off. But we'll see. Tonight we got 2 full hours on it, and it's going to be obviously a quick reclear to get back to it every week. So it won't be long before we get over that hump. So I mean, the raid's been super fun so far. I've really been enjoying it.
Yeah, no, so I recognize when you mentioned Soul Hunters that my brain was like, oh yeah, I don't think I mentioned Soul Binder. Yeah, no, our kill order when we were going to Mythic was Plexus Sentinel, then Soul Binder, then Lumathar, then we were working on Forge Weaver Araz. So
right.
That's where we're currently at, and we're like
it seems like that's kind of the accepted standard is go that way, go Soulbinder second. So
yeah, Lumathar definitely has a tighter DPS check than Soulbinder does. So that's really what it comes down to, is if your team is like easily defeating Soulbinder, you're probably in a decent spot for Lumathar, but you still need to find ways to optimize that boss for damage to not run out of space, because in the last phase of that fight, Lumathar keeps putting down these puddles on the ground, and so you have to move the boss around while dealing with the frontals, while dealing with the space you've already denied by running webs out, because when you snap webs, you put down expanding web circles. So you just sort of deal with this, like, the room starts to get really tight. So that's really where your DPS check comes in for Lumathar on that. But yeah, with Araz, it's been how to deal with the ads, and how do you want to deal with the ads, and et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of people are doing a knockback strat, which basically involves the ads that spawn in that fight spawn with a barrier on them that needs to get pulled off by having them pass through one of the black hole dots you put on the ground. And so people are either dropping them in front of that black hole, then knocking all the ads back through it, which they feel is a DPS increase because there's less movement for players than running behind the black hole to drop the ads. So the ads spawn and walk through the hole. But walking through the hole is much more consistent than a knockback, which if anything goes wrong with, and you end up with an ad off to the side who's now immune, you're just kind of screwed. So it's kind of one of those like debates of like, do we need the extra damage? Do we want the consistency? What are we doing? And we're running behind the black hole. I think consistency just makes the most sense, since damage isn't going to be the big check that it was when, Liquid and them were working through this, especially this week with the extra 3% buff that we're all getting. If you've been keeping up with your raid reputation for your renown, then you get that extra 3% damage. It should not be a factor on that. So we're going with consistency, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, seems like a good plan. And yeah, this was the first week that we started getting the zone buff, which I don't know, I guess was kind of noticeable. We haven't been doing anything that has felt hard enough where it's like, oh yeah, because we're also getting huge item level jumps. So the early 3%, it's hard to really gauge how it feels. But yeah, that was raid, and that'll probably be the trajectory for a little while. I think we're going to stop doing normal soon, because people have options for gear and stuff. And also, like, we are in a big guild that does community runs. They do normal full clears on the weekends. Like, if you're really chasing something from normal, we might just direct people that way instead of using our limited raid schedule for more normal. Yeah,
we agreed. We stopped doing normal this past week as well. We're not going to target any bosses at all. I really wanted the trinket off Fractilis because my vault was very kind to me this week and gave me the staff, which is the best in slot staff that you can get.
Nice.
So that was wonderful, and it is one of the pieces of gear out of there that has the 2-piece bonus. So if you're equipping it plus one of the trinkets, then you end up with this big bonus, which increases the effectiveness of the effect on the staff by 200%. So I was like, well, I really want to get this trinket, and so I did LFR. Didn't get the trinket from LFR. Was basically asking our team, are we going to be doing normal? They said no. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to pug a Fractilis kill to try and get this trinket, and 2 of them dropped. And one of the trinkets I rolled a 66 on, the other one I rolled an 84 on. The one I rolled a 66 on, someone rolled a 100 on. And then I just had to wait to see if anyone could beat my 84. And no one did, so I got the trinket, which was awesome.
Oh, nice. So, yeah, that window of like waiting to see the rolls come in, you're like, come on.
I know, it's like everyone roll poorly.
Click, come on, click.
So I was very, very thrilled about that. So that meant that I have the trinket staff combo going, and that's going to keep me nice. In a good space for a while, which is great. So for those who are curious, that is a combo that either does damage to things when you're casting. So if you cast spells, it has a chance to do some damage to the target you're casting spells on. If you are healing, then it has a chance to spawn a 1.4 million damage shield on the target that you're healing. The trinket increases that by 200%. So you suddenly are like, oh, well, this is literally more than doubling the healing that I'm outputting from this effect that is a free effect that I'm generating. And it's a bubble, which means that is always effective healing because it's going to get chewed through first. So it's just a really nice effect. So yeah, I was quite pleased about getting that. That worked out really well.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I gotta kind of poll the team and see if we feel like normal's worth doing this week or what. It's only going to be maybe 1 or 2 more weeks, if anything at all. But yeah, I mean, overall, I've been having a great time in the raid. For this week, Mythic Plus, I already filled out my vault, even though I missed Wednesday. I think I did like 4 keys Tuesday night after raid or something, and then we did a whole bunch on Thursday, which is an off night for the team, but people are looking to play. I'll probably do some more tonight after raid, especially if people want to go or need stuff for vault. But great week. I love the affix this week, and we've just been blasting away. I'm up to 2791 now.
Nice.
I'm five aces away to plus 12 Brazil, which is where I want to be. I don't really want to play with affixes, even though this affix is pretty good this week. So getting there, maybe another week or 2. I mean, hey, if everything lines up perfectly tonight, I could finish Resilience any night I sit down to play at this point. It's just a matter of getting the keys to line up. But dungeons are feeling great. I got my mythic set shoulders from the vault. I already had hero track shoulders, so it wasn't like a huge upgrade, but it is like the shoulders I'll wear through the rest of the expansion, right? So that was cool, and I was really just waiting on that catalyst charge. So once all that came through, okay, huge item level upgrade on my shoulders, slap on my catalyst pieces, and then I also had an offset chest. As a prot warrior, I don't really want to wear my set chest because of the statting. I picked one up from keys on hero track that had nice stats. So that was just a massive upgrade all the way around. Reset hit, I opened my vault and I slapped on 4 new pieces of gear is how that worked out. The 4-piece for Prot Warrior Mountain Thane is an incredible DPS upgrade. It basically makes your the thing that you get from your 2-piece, your new proc, it makes you proc Thunder Blasts, which is your cool upgraded Thunderclap that you get from Mountain Thane. And it makes you proc one of those that does double damage, and it also makes the 2-piece proc do double damage. So, like I was talking last week about the Brand of Ceaseless Ire and how that was like my top damage in keys. And now it's a distant second place behind Thunderblast now because of the 4-piece. Like
second place is still outrageous for that trinket. But yes,
it is outrageous. But like the jump of going to that 4-piece and like how that modifies Thunderblast, just like just goes to show you like how big of a DPS upgrade that was. So I'm up to 708 equipped now. The only thing that's really awkward is I'm still using my Tome of Light's Devotion from Season 2, which is a really strong tank trinket. And it's like, I have like other hero track trinkets I could swap in, but nothing really quite does what the Tome does. So
right.
I haven't been able to get one. I've never seen one drop. I never got one in a vault. I only got it because I bought it from Chips, and that trend continues into Season 3.
We got to get you into a group that just has people who can roll tank spec, and just everyone rolls tank spec is what needs to happen.
I did do at least 1 or 2 of those with like 3 of us were in tank spec. The problem you run into with that though is like that doesn't necessarily mean the trinket's going to be tradable. So. It just depends on what gear people already have. But, the hunt continues on that. And it's like, I don't know. I actually got a heroic sack brood from Arakara this week. Like, maybe I should just swap that in for item level. Like, it's a pretty good trinket. It doesn't do what Tome does, but it's still good. So, I don't know. I have a lot of options. I did a lot of keys, and they've been kind to me with loot overall. So, I'm feeling great about that. And I even had time to get my delves done already this week. I don't have to do any last-minute delves. All the alts are done. The gearing is not really going my way on these tunes. I keep getting hero legs out of my maps, and you only need 1 set of legs. Yep. And this is what both of these tunes seem to keep getting. It's just leg armor everywhere. So it's been a little slow gearing them up so far. But the thing is, the content that I'm playing them through, like mostly 8 delves, I do my 3 11s a week. It feels easy for them. It doesn't like I have my brand maxed out. I have all my curios maxed out. That helps a lot. And tanks have sort of an advantage in solo delves anyway, because nothing is that threatening. It might take a while, make it a little boring trying to AoE stuff down, but you don't get hurt that much if you know how to defend yourself, and you're actually using Brand's potions and stuff like that. It's not some grueling challenge at the item level, around 680 or whatever, wherever my alts are. So, I want to collect the loot. I want to activate the bonuses. I want to get the Mog. I want to get the power. I want to speed this all up, but I'm not hitting any roadblocks because I only have a couple pieces of hero gear in these tunes at this point in the season. Also, the ethereal gates that you find inside the delves, man, that is so nice for when you're just trying to pound out your vault delves. You just want to get them done. Like, they generally speed up the process a lot,
or simplify it, one or the other.
Sometimes both. Once in a while I'll run into one really late in the process, and it's like, well, I haven't finished this story yet, so like, it's a new story in the patch or whatever, so I guess I'll just ignore the gate and I'll just go to the end of it. But usually you hit one in the first third or 2/3 of the delve, and it's like, let me just take the fast lane, get this done, get my chests, and get my vault credit, because that's the biggest thing on both of those tunes right now. It's just, what am I getting out of vault, and please don't be a row of heroic trinkets. So I mean, I got a whole bunch of stuff done already this week. And so I don't, tonight will just be hop on, check out Dementia, see how far we can get with it, and maybe do some keys if people need them. And then I'm really just chilling until reset. So that's good, because leading up to this week, it's been like, oh man, I still got to get keys on the druid for bountiful delves, and I got to hit. I only got one more rotation of bountifuls before weekly reset, whatever. I got to get in there Monday night and make sure I get all my stuff done.
Right.
I'm not in that position this week, so that feels really nice.
Good. Yeah. No, it definitely is nice as we get to that third week that we're starting to feel more geared on those characters. I will say, as someone who's been maining healer, so I've been healing all different sorts of tanks inside Mythic Plus. Blood DKs are in a terrible place. They are the most terrifying tank to heal by far. As far as like they normally are spiky. This is like spiky to a whole other degree that I'm seeing from Blood DKs. They need something. There's something that needs to be adjusted there. It is easier to heal a 694 geared non-tier set wearing warrior than it is to heal a 4-piece wearing 706 Blood DK. That is weird to me, that there's like that you're more successful with one is just actually tankier, holds threat better, and is able to work their way through the dungeon, versus the other one who is spiky damage to an extreme degree, always feels like they're on the verge of death, and is like kind of doing okay damage wise, but nowhere near what a warrior or a monk would be doing. And that's very strange to see that happening. So I do think Guardian Druids and Blood DKs need some love when it comes to tanking. There's a reason why we're not seeing them very much, and those reasons are pretty strong. And especially when you start looking at equally geared, the damage output from a monk or a warrior versus a Blood DK or a Guardian Druid is a dramatic difference in how much damage those classes can put out. It's pretty impressive to see what monks are especially able to do. Then after they had a bad season, and not like a really bad season, but like not a great season last season, I'm glad to see them back and doing well. They are very easy to heal. I've always enjoyed healing monks because of their entire stagger mechanic is just very easy to address as a healer, especially as a resto druid. So that I love, but I do feel like there's a fairly large disparity between some of the tanks classes at the moment, both in damage and in survivability, and that needs to get, I think, checked a little bit. Speaking of disparities, boomkins, again, I will reiterate, boomkins are in a very strange space. If you look at the damage profiles for a lot of specs, there's like the front runners, the mid runners, and then boomkins by themselves 18% behind everybody. Like it's that literal, like, what is going on? Where like, guys, you need to do something to address this with the spec for people, because it's just very strange to have one particular spec be that far of an outlier behind everybody else. So hopefully that gets addressed for them too. All right, with that,
I gotta think we gotta see something soon, because just to preface the next discussion we're going to have, there really were no class tuning changes this week, and then we're in the holiday in the US, so maybe this week coming up, we'll see a round of class tuning or whatever, because it's now been a couple weeks and we're still pretty fresh into the patch.
I expect class tuning. I also expect boss tuning. We're going to be coming up on that point where I think they've allowed the teams that were working on Dimensius on Mythic enough time that they're going to start nerfing Dimensius on Mythic and nerfing Nexus King on Mythic. I think those nerfs will come in, either this week on Thursday or next week on the Tuesday, and we'll see what they choose to do. And that'll just be the big, that'll be the big first pass on those bosses where people were brick walled there. Dimensius, as someone pointed out to me, and they were absolutely right, is the first end raid boss that we did not see tuning on during the race. There was the first time we did not see them come in and change things and need to change things. They actually just left it exactly as it was, and the teams worked on it and struggled with it and then managed to down it. And that was very impressive from a design standpoint for Blizz. But we're now in that point where teams that are not stacking 4 elemental shamans or are not stacking these sorts of things are starting to get to those bosses and are not able to really make solid progress on them because they don't have those same class stacking sort of and skill level that's happening from Race to World Firsters. So they will need some adjustments happening to those 2 bosses soon, just to make them more human for everybody else to be able to fight and kill and be able to defeat. So it still needs to be a fun game. It can't just be punishment. So they need to, the teams that are Race to World First did hundreds and hundreds of pulls on these bosses. I don't think we want to see bosses again that people are doing 300 plus pulls on in World of Warcraft. So let's get that fixed again. That'd be great. Okay, let's hop into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, this week is the Cataclysm Time Walking event, which means the Sign of the Destroyer buff is up, increasing Cataclysm reputation gains from combat and quest by 50%, and characters level 10 and higher can access time walking versions of End Time, Blackrock Caverns, Lost City of Tol'vir, the Stone Core, Vortex Pinnacle, and Throne of the Tides. These dungeons are dropping 655 eye-level gear. There's a vendor selling 642 gear, and there's a quest to complete 5 of these, which gets you a normal Manaforge Omega set of gear. Or you could go and do your Time Walking Firelands raid that's out there, where groups of 10 to 30 players can get in and get themselves some champion track loot off of the bosses, as well as complete the raid quest that's out there to get a 694 eye-level piece of Cataclysm raid loot, that hero track loot that you can get from there. And defeating bosses inside of Time Walking Firelands also counts towards the complete defeating bosses for completing those 5 time walking dungeons. So if you kill 5 bosses in Firelands, you can do that as opposed to completing 5 time walking dungeons. So if you're like, hey, I want to pick up both of these quests, the Firelands raid one, as well as the dungeon boss defeating one, go and do a Firelands run, you'll complete both of those quests at the same time and get that extra gear. It's a great way to gear up. Time walking also a great way to get a bunch of experience gain and level characters quickly through the actual running of these dungeons. And these are great dungeons. Like I have this very strong memory because we lived in Cataclysm for so long in my head of this content that, yeah, it's certainly something that I enjoy revisiting now that it's been like more than a decade since we were there. But yes, it is certainly a good chunk of content to get into. And obviously that heroic track piece is going to be juicy for people to get. And that normal track piece, like I said, it could be a trinket that you just really need out of the raid. Like you might get your trinket off of Lumathar, or you might get your trinket off of Fractilis, or you might get your trinket off one of the last bosses. You might get loot off one of the last bosses. Like that's all accessible out of this normal Manaforge Omega gear cache. So definitely worth getting in there and doing that content.
Yeah, I mean, Cataclysm was certainly not my favorite expansion, but it did have some cool dungeons, and the time walking pool is really good. I wouldn't mind seeing End Time and maybe Vortex Pinnacle getting swapped out.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
The other ones, and End Time is a cool dungeon. It's a little complex for the time walking audience, but the time walking tuning, despite my initial fears when they were talking about how they were going to rework it for 11.2, I think it's landed pretty soft. Like there must be some breakpoints where it's noticeable, but when I've done it so far since they made the changes, I've just been running through it. So should be, fast and fun. It's not a great way to gear a tune that you're like trying to get into current content because the drops are pretty low. The vendor stuff is basically campaign quest equivalent item level, but if you want to blast through the queue and get your caches, it's definitely good for that. I'm not sure if I'll be doing this on the main, but I might be looking for some Ragnaros groups in the group finder on the alts, because that extra piece of hero loot could be really big this early on. That's my goal, right, with those tunes, is to get them into hero track loot, and I don't really do much with them other than delving.
Right.
Maybe later in the season I'll take them to, heroic raid reclears or whatever, but it's going to be weeks. So it's like a trickle of power for them. So it might be worth it for me if I could find some Ragnaros skips or whatever and get in there and do it. That would be really nice. So yeah, it's cool that time walking early in the season. It just gives you different options for those, those max level pieces, that raid level loot. So yeah, definitely worth doing. My ongoing complaint with the time walking is the moment to moment dungeon itself. Like, what is the point of it? It's the rewards just aren't there. You're doing it for the wrapper. You're doing it for the meta reward for having done a bunch of it, not for doing an individual one, which always feels a little weird.
I would rather see them increase the amount of time walking badges you get from time walking dungeons to make that the carrot. So people are like, ooh, yeah, I want to get a whole bunch of badges. I'm going to run 15 or 20 time walking dungeons this week. That be the motivation for it, as opposed to, I'm going to run this to try and get this quest done, which really is the like highest reward you're going to get. And outside of that, like, it's nice to run them for time walking badges, but you're getting so few comparatively to the cost of the rewards. I just feel like there isn't a feeling like, hey, if I just invested my time in time walking for the week and did 20 time walking dungeons, I could buy every reward on the vendor. I mean, it isn't that kind of feeling. And I think there's a miss there of, okay, each time walking has its own vendor. When that time walking's out, could you actually earn enough tokens to be able to purchase everything off the vendor without no-lifing the game for the entire week? No, you can't. And even if you did no-life the game, you'd probably be close to not having enough tokens to buy everything off the vendor. And I think there's that unfortunate trade-off of like, hey, this is a neat thing when it comes around, you can actually invest in this. It would mean they'd need to eventually add some rewards to the vendor occasionally to sort of keep people engaged in wanting to do that part of the content. But it is nice to be able to not feel like, well, after 3 years of doing, Wrath of the Lich King time walking stuff, I've now finally accomplished getting all of the, like, that's kind of what it feels like. And I don't think the tail should be that long to get all those rewards. So, all right. As far as the Koresh weeklies go, there is a new cache you can get from phase diving. The more than just a phase quest you get now gives a phase diver's cache, which is funny because that's what my brain thought it did initially when it came out, because that just makes sense, but it wasn't. So I don't know if this was broken or if this is something they added, but this is a way to get an additional key for your delvers, your delving stuff, your bountiful delves this week. You can get an additional key out of now doing your phase diving cache and get those rewards as well. So this is big for this week.
This is awesome. Yeah, I noticed this probably the second time through on my tunes this week, because I'm already at the point where on the main I don't really need to do delves. I did them off the rip, off of reset to get my Gilded Crest and get my Ethereal Strands before raid, but at this point it doesn't have the pull on the main, but it is the primary content that I do on the alts, and getting this extra key is huge. I've been bemoaning key acquisition. I think I talked about it on last week's show. I've been talking about it with people in the TSC Discord, which how bad it feels. And I have to do a bunch of content I don't want to do, or that doesn't really matter to me, in order to do the stuff that I want to do. And this smooths it out a lot, because now you can kind of easily get 4 coffer keys just from current content. You have your weekly quest in Dornegal that we've been doing all expansion, the rotating one. You do that. Then you go to Koresh and you do your more than just a phase, which is going to involve doing phase diving world quests, most likely. And so then that gives you credit towards unlocking the special assignment world quest on Koresh. So there's 2 more keys from that, from the phase diver's cache from more than just a phase, and then from the special assignment. So you get your 3 keys. And then the weekly world quest at Ecological Succession, you don't actually have to do. I mentioned this, I think, last week or the week before, because I was just confused about how it worked. You don't have to have the quest line unlocked on the alts. Like, once you go to the Dome, you now have the world quest, you have the dailies. You have to fill that bar by either doing 5 of the repeatable world quests, or doing some combination of those, and also the Devourer assaults and everything like that. And there's your Wriggling Pinnacle cache. There's your 4th key. And so that's what we've been used to, right, is getting 4 keys a week from doing the various caches. Then you can go back and do the old stuff. and 4 of those will grant you coffer key shards. So you can actually get 6 keys just from that. And then, keep an eye out for other world quests that grant 25 coffer key shards, things like that. You can use the World Soul Memories, which I may need to do this week coming up just to restock a bit. Many players are now getting to the point where you can buy the coffer keys for Undercoin 2 a week from Sir Finley. So this way you can make sure that if you want to do nothing but bountifuls, you can do them with keys to open the cache at the end without it feeling too bad. Last week, not this current reset we're in, but the previous reset, I was like spamming World Soul Memories on my alts because I needed to get those extra few keys. Right now, a good champ track piece could be an upgrade for them, and I didn't want to do bountifuls without being able to benefit from that. So this week I didn't have to do that, and now we have some more options. It may be at the point where sometimes I have to run some World Soul Memories just to stock up, but adding this extra key in for a thing that I was already doing every week anyway is huge. So I'm glad they did that. I don't, like you kind of alluded to, I don't know if it was supposed to be like this, it was just bugged or the reward wasn't there, or if this is a response to negative feedback about key acquisition. But either way, I'm glad it's there, and just make sure it's on your radar if you're delving.
Exactly. All right. And speaking of that weekly that gets you a key, there's the choose one week is what we're running into right now. So we're going to be doing choose one. And so just be sure you're picking, either the world quests or the dungeons or the Awakening the Machine or whatever it is that's going to actually get that done easiest for you. Or delves. Delves is a great one still early in the season. Just running a couple of delves and getting that done. You need to sort of run them anyways to get some of the other rewards you're wanting to get right now, including that map to then get a heroic piece. So definitely be checking that out.
It might, I marked this up, but I may have done this wrong. I think, was it Titan Disc Fragments this week? It may be a Delves Weekly this week. I think if it was Titan Disc Fragments this week, then it's actually Delves coming up. But also keep in mind you can bank 3 of these and then do them all at once. So it depends on how you want to go. The Delve Weeklies are usually pretty gentle, like do 3 Delves in Kaz Algar, and then you get your key and you get all that stuff. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the changes to the weekly rotation stuff as of this week.
Yeah. Outside of that, we have a PvP brawl for the week, which is South Shore versus Terran Mill. And this is the, OG 10-year anniversary big 40-on-40 deathmatch battleground that they put out that you can queue into. And yeah, if you're just looking for some fast honor, great way to just get a whole bunch of fast honor and just have a good time in a 40-on-40 deathmatch that sort of symbolizes the early days of World of Warcraft, when these sorts of battles between these two cities would just break out just out of the blue. Like someone would be killing a spider and a horde player would come up and attack the person killing the spider, and then that person would call in their guildies, so their guildies would show up and attack that horde player, and then that horde player would call in their guildies, and then next thing you know, people are announcing it inside general chat that there's a fight breaking out in this area, and then more people would join that, and it would just become this huge epic 5-hour long fight between the two towns. It was until one group had killed all the NPCs inside the other person's town. It was just brutal going back and forth. So yeah, definitely a nice little shout out to those days. And if you're looking to do some fast honor, it's a great way to get it.
Yeah, it's cool. There's really not a lot of technique here. Like we always say, it's just a big death match, really. And yeah, cool throwback to the way World PvP was before Battlegrounds and stuff came out. That's really what I associated with the most, is that window before Battlegrounds opened. And yeah, it's fun, and it's I know that I say this every time it comes around, but it's so weird that this was like the 10th anniversary mode, and now that is so far in the rearview mirror. Yeah, we've had it in as a brawl as long as it was from when the game launched to when the mode came out as an anniversary event.
Yes,
so it's just really weird to think about. But yeah, go bring your Death Knights and grip some people to their doom in the brawl this week.
As far as world bosses go, you still want to get out there and kill Reshinor. I haven't seen any more tuning happen to Reshinor. It still takes the same amount of flights back and forth, but does drop that 688 eye level gear for plate head, mail chest, leather feet, cloth shoulders, plate waist, mill waist, leather legs, and cloth waist, as well as that haste mastery ring. The haste mastery ring I've now seen 3 times in a row. I have never seen anything but the haste mastery ring. I don't know why, but now all my ults have haste mastery rings. So it's weird. I don't know why that is, but yes, that is the situation I've been finding myself in. Certainly worth getting out there and do it. Just remember, when you defeat the ads on this boss, you get the pink spikes that you can stand on that let you phase dive down. and do a higher crit chance to the boss. And so you can just blow up the damage and use your cooldowns in the downstairs phase before the boss sends you back upstairs. So definitely take advantage of that while you can.
I got my first haste ring this week, so I've gotten actually 3 different pieces so far. But it is a nice haste ring, at least. It's very hasty. So if you like that, then that's a nice thing to drop on an alt, because sometimes those pieces are so annoying to fill in. But yeah, I don't know. It's getting a little bit better. I still feel like a lot of people are not grasping the fact that you need to phase dive and continue to attack the boss and do bonus damage to it. If everybody was doing that, then the boss would not feel like such a slog. I was doing one this week. I guess the one that I did this week, when I would go phase dive because the boss was phased out, you can see if people are in your phase or not in your raid group. Yeah. And there was maybe a small handful of us out of a full 40-player group. Yeah. And some people were saying like, oh, go near the pink thing and click the button to phase dive. But it's like nobody's really paying attention to that during the fight. They're too busy typing that the boss needs a health nerf, which is kind of funny. But I don't know. Spread the word. Try to lead by example. I don't know. Phase yourself out and do mega damage to the boss. And I don't know. Someday this will speed up a bit. I mean, I agree that it's annoying that how long it takes to kill the boss, but I also don't think the design is that inscrutable. Like the first time I looked at it, I went, oh, I have a button here. Oh, he's phased out. Oh, I can click the button, and now I didn't know exactly what the buff was or whatever, but I'm like, at least I can still attack him. I'm not waiting for him to come out of the phase or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know that the boss really needs adjustments, but if the player base is not catching on to what is supposed to be happening, then maybe it's better to just say, well, the phase diving idea was cool, but we're just going to give him a 15% health nerf and cut that whole element out of the fight. Yeah. We'll see, I guess. Yeah. It's speeding up a little bit, but I think people are still really unhappy with it.
Mythic Plus affixes for the week are Devour, which means that players periodically are affected with a healing quota while in combat, and this quota needs to be either dispelled off of the players or healed through, which gets you a stacking max health buff and critical chance buff. So you just want to be sure that you're helping your healers out by helping with dispels. Any dispel works. So if you can spec into a dispel this week, please spec into a dispel, because all you have to do is just, dispel yourself whenever this pops up, and you have saved your healer a dramatic amount of work. So it's really nice. I will say there are definitely going to be healing specs. Like I feel like Resto Druid would handle this affix a lot better with its current build that it has right now. And that's great, but it's just good common practice to understand how an affix works. And if you have a counter for it yourself, that does not cost you like a substantial amount of damage, which one global will not do, and one talent point out of your tree will not do, please spec into your dispel and just have a dispel ready so you can do this. It's really nice. Definitely take advantage.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, you gotta have a plan. This is really the biggest thing. And this is also the first time we're seeing Devour in a new season, so we don't know how that healing is going to feel. If these are just popping, then great. But you definitely want to have kind of an eject button, right? If nothing else, just in case. I kind of always give the example that Warrior has a way to do this, but it's kind of bad. Like it's on a very long cooldown, so it's not like you can use it every single time. And also it's in an awkward spot in the tree, so you do have to give up something that you could be using to do something else just to get like every other dispel on yourself. But it's probably still worth taking, especially if you're in a pug or if you're maybe in a situation where the healer is asking for more assistance with Devour. So keep it in mind. There is some weirdness around the fact that it's not a healing absorb. It's an amount of healing you need to receive before it pops, because there are some healing effects that don't apply if you're at max health. Yeah. So just be careful with that. Sometimes it's like I need to take some damage so I can hit my, impending victory or whatever, and then I can heal myself back a bit. Just little things like that are weird about the FX overall, but in general, when I've played with it since it came in, at first it felt a little overbearing, then we kind of got used to it, and then the tuning kind of evened out. It feels pretty good generally, and it's not very visually disruptive in terms of combat. I mean, it is a lot for like player frames, right? Because everybody's got the debuff and everything, but there's nothing in the field of play. There's no ad. There's no nameplate extra. Yeah. There's nothing rotating around you or whatever. So it runs a little quieter than the other ones. And yeah, the buff is is pretty nice. So it should be a good week. Coming in with the lower rank fortified, as I always say, I kind of like that better for people that are working their way up the system, because you won't hit those hard, brick walls with dungeon bosses as much, and even if you have a sloppy trash pack or whatever, stuff gets out of hand. If you kill a mob in a pack, it stays dead. So
yeah.
So, if you do struggle as you're working your way up the ranks, if you're patient, you can at least clear the dungeon and get something for your time. So it's a good week to get in there and start checking keys out. If you haven't been doing them this season, this one is pretty decent, especially if you can bring something to the table to help your team with the dispels.
Yeah, Halls of Atonement is probably going to be your big one this go around. That's going to be a really difficult dungeon with this particular affix. Halls of Atonement has a lot of debuffs that need to be dispelled and dispelled quickly. If you are not handling those debuffs well, they do a lot of damage, and they also do AoE damage around the target. So if you're like, hey, here comes the affix, and one of your group members also gets the debuff that is going to do a bunch of AoE damage and potentially one-shot that player depending on the difficulty, you have to be able to track both of those things and be able to know you are dispelling the target that is the correct target. You can't just dispel the person who's affected by something you can dispel. If all that happens is like your character frame changes color for people who have something on them that you're capable of dispelling, you are not tracking stuff closely enough. You need to be able to track the affix debuff separately from the actual other debuffs that are happening, because you need to be able to dispel those things properly. Another similar boss like that would be inside Gambit. The dragon boss in Gambit puts out 2 debuffs at a time. It's critically important that you are dispelling these debuffs as fast as possible. The moment they go out, get the first dispel on a target that got one of these, because the second dispel is something that you will not get to in time if you are not dispelling right away before the next 2 come out. And this snowballs really hard, and it's not really something that you can end up healing through if all 5 players start getting these debuffs regularly. It is very difficult to try and maintain healing through that. So just be aware that, that this is one of those weeks this is why I emphasize, hey, if you can help healers out by dispelling yourselves, please do, because you're also just decluttering their raid frames to make sure it's easier to tell what you're doing and who needs a dispel and what's happening with it. Because this is one of those weeks where this affix will eat dispels like crazy. And if a healer's just like instinctively hitting dispel whenever they see this thing come out, it's very easy for someone to get something that actually needs to be dispelled that you're now on cooldown for. And, there's nothing you can do about it, and that player's just going to take that damage, or it's going to end up causing you a wipe. So keep that in mind going through this week in Mythic Plus. Okay, when it comes to Eastern Kingdom Cup, this is the next little event that's kicked off already. It's running August 26th until the 9th of September. So you got some time to do it. You can head to Veldraken, Stormwind, or Orgrimmar and visit the vendors there who will, let you spend some of your tokens on all of the old rewards that were available for this, but also the new rewards. They actually put out a whole new Sky Masters Silver and Sapphire transmog pieces. So this allows you to get the Mantle, Cloak, and Tabard, as well as the Crown, Appults, and Shadow Guards that are from these rewards. This totals up to being like, what is this? 100 badges is what you need. You need 100 badges to be able to purchase all of these things. And you get 3 badges per difficulty, depending on whether you're getting bronze, silver, or gold. So if you just get bronze, you get 1 token, one of these badges. If you get silver, you get 2 of them. If you get gold, you get the 3rd one. And each of these have 3 difficulties. You can get 9 of them per location. There's like 14 or 15 different race locations. So you don't have to do all the difficulties. You don't have to gold all of them to be able to purchase all the rewards, but it is one of those things where, getting that done is going to be helpful. I think the quest also rewards some tokens, so there's a little bit of leeway in there as well. And this is definitely a good time to get back out there. It's also a good time to change which Drake you normally do races on, because these guys all let you know you can change your Drake and which Drake you want to change it to. So while you're out there doing this quest, you can, select your Slither Drake or whatever it is you want to do for your riding and racing, and have a good time with Eastern Kingdom Cup.
Yeah, it's a cool event. It's significantly easier to do it with the smaller dragon models. You don't really want to do it on the Proto Drake or the Highland Drake if you can avoid it. I think. I mean, it's just easier to use the smaller models. They do have different collision boxes, it feels like. Yeah, I'm of 2 minds. It's cool that there's new stuff to do. It does mean that I have to revisit this event that I already, worked my way through all golds on. So I did have 30 badges left over somehow. So I was able to buy the Tabard right away. And there are quests. there's like a quest chain. I don't know if it doesn't say warband, so I only picked it up on one toon, but I think you can probably just go through and there's like intro quests that you have to do and for Lord Andastraz, and I think probably if you just follow that chain on a couple characters, even if you don't sit there and max out all the stuff, you could get a whole bunch of mogs. There's a ton of stuff to buy because there's all the new stuff plus all the old stuff. I think I can't see it on my account anymore because I bought it, but
yeah, there is.
Yeah, it's a super cool event. It's fun to revisit these places and do this like high speed flying race through them. So I like it. I haven't had time to revisit it this week, but I want to get the new stuff before it's over. It's a little more like dwarf looking, I feel like. The example that they give is on a dwarf in the screenshot in the blog, and it's like it does kind of match that sort of Griffin rider look almost in a way, even though it's obviously a dragon riding event. I think you have to use dragons on it. You select your dragon, and I think you have to use the one that you selected, but it's cool. Like it does make sense if you're going to bring it back every year, every other year or whatever, to add new reasons to do it. So yeah, I got to get back in there and check these out because, I collected all the various cups, all the rewards before. I don't want to be missing out on stuff, but just haven't had time to get back in there and fly around.
Yeah. As far as Dark Moon Fair goes, because we're entering into a new month, that means that we are having Dark Moon Fair kick off on the 7th of September and run until the 13th, which is your chance to get those extra knowledge points for your professions, if that's something you're still working on, or if maybe you're switching some stuff up now that there's some different profession stuff that you can focus on for your character. And obviously your Dark Moon Fair tokens towards your dirigible. You can get more of those Dark Moon Dagger Maw fish. You can do the racing achievements. You can do the dance achievements. You can do all sorts of fun stuff as far as that goes, if that's something that you're wanting to check out. And yes, Dark Moon Fair will be up during that. You get the experience gain and reputation gain buffs from either riding the Griffin or from doing the merry-go-round, the carousel there, getting yourself those buffs as well. So keep that in mind. This is big still with the renown. If you're working your way towards that, if you haven't been, obviously maxing it out, I think a lot of people who did absolutely everything everywhere they could have already achieved their repeatable augment rune. They've already gotten that out of doing the renown track. But if you haven't done that yet, this is a great way to get that 10% more rep towards all of your Koresh renown to be able to get those rewards as well.
Yeah. Also, there'll be a small overlap with time walking too. So good chance for some extra, bonus XP for leveling tunes. And hey, if you got leftover XP pots from Mysterious Fortune that just wrapped up a few weeks back, Sunday, Monday, you could kind of just pop some potions, get your Dark Moon buff, and queue up some time walking, blast a tune to 80.
Yeah, it's certainly a good thing to take advantage of. Okay. As far as talking about this being the start of a new month, I'm going to talk a little bit about Trading Post, because that's also happening at the top of the new month. So for those who are looking towards September, we have the September Trading Post stock post that came in. This means that we know we're going to be getting a cinder-plumed Highland Griffin as one of the mounts you can purchase. This is a very cool... This is almost like the fiery hippogriff version of a griffin, except it's not, fiery in the color, but not fiery in the trail coming off it. It's not on fire. It's just a very orange and auburn kind of colored hippogriff. So it's not hippogriff. I keep wanting to say hippogriff, but griffin. So if that's something you're looking for, that is certainly on my purchase list because it's just so pretty and I love to see it. When it comes to the armor appearances, it seems like we're getting a red versus blue month again, where we have this Bronzebeard ceremonial collection and the Speaker's ceremonial collection. And so you have these very stone-based red and stone-based blue colorations of armors, transmog appearances that you can pick up and buy. And then we also have the Rainy Day ensemble for those RPers out there and folks who like dressing their characters a certain way. And I guess with the new transmog system coming in, this might be one of those things where maybe you can set a condition for when it's raining, or you can set a condition for when I go into town that you put on your raincoat and your rain boots and walk around in your more casual attire rain outfit when it comes to these sorts of things with the new transmog rules that'll be happening with the new expansion coming out at some point. There's weapons that tie in with these armor sets as well, so keep that in mind. And then our monthly reward is the High Shaman's Airy Griffin. And this is a griffin, and the best way to describe it, with emerald glowing feathers is sort of the neat way to look at it. All of its actual flight feathers are these emerald color that glow with a big old crest on its chest. So another very cool griffin to earn and add to the collection if you're someone who's looking for those.
Yeah, looking really nice this month. It's Dwarf Month. We were hoping that, we had Undead Month a couple months ago. I will say Undead Month, Forsaken Month had a better they had that tiered bonus reward. I was hoping that they would do that for everybody, but there's no indication that it's going to work like that this month. But yeah, I'm going to be, sometimes I talk about trading posts and it's like, well, there's really nothing. Maybe I'll spend a couple hundred tender on some things just because this month, even though I don't main a dwarf, like Dwarf Month, I'm all in on. This stuff looks awesome. The Mog sets really are. They're not 1-to-1, but the vibe they give off it's very Magni Bronzebeard, right? It's like it's a look very similar to what his armor looked like before he got turned into diamond, and then sort of the diamond version of it are your two kind of ensemble choices. The Wildhammer style griffins, both to buy and the bonus reward, look awesome.
Yeah.
Some really cool back attachments and weapons and stuff in here too. So I think I'm going on a little shopping spree when this opens up tomorrow, because I want a bunch of this stuff. There's some cool returning things too. Like there's the Plunder Lord's Radiant Finery is going to be available. So if you want that pirate look, that's a cool addition.
Sure.
The Plunder Lord stuff is really nice. So some cool stuff on the way this month, and a perfect timing with Brewfest, because Brewfest will be starting up pretty soon in September. And I mean, what better time for Dwarf Month, right? So, yeah, really cool stuff. Looking forward to it. Trading Post tends to be feast or famine for me, because I'm either all in on the theme or I just couldn't be bothered. I'm definitely feasting this month.
I can't believe we're already hitting that fall time where we get Brewfest back around
right?
again. It's so fast, man.
Yeah, it's been flying by.
Yep. As far as hotfixes go, there were some hotfixes that came out, but not a lot of like class balance tuning or raid dungeon tuning. This is mostly fixes that we saw to a lot of the class sets that had something firing wrong or not working right. And then trinket balancing. That's where the biggest thing sort of came in. With trinket balancing, I mean, just in general, they're trying to make some of these dungeon trinkets and delve trinkets that are not very sought after a little bit more sought after, a little bit more interesting for people to do it, as well as just some quality of life stuff. The biggest one I noticed was that Soleil's Secret Technique. That buff now lasts 1 hour, up from 30 minutes. This is really nice, especially since, a lot of Mythic Plus dungeons take close to 30 minutes. So it was really unfortunate to have to recast your Soleil's partway through a Mythic Plus dungeon, just because, or you do the first 5 minutes, and then the moment of a lore opportunity was happening where you're standing around, you're just refreshing your Soleil's buff because you're let's just make sure that stays for the rest of the key. That was weird. So I'm glad to see this get changed out to 1 hour. That just makes a lot of sense. We then have, just basically 10 to 15% buffs to a lot of these other trinkets that we're seeing. First Class Healing Distributor getting a 20% healing increase on it. The Astral Antenna's Critical Strike got nerfed by 3% crit, although it still is one of the best DPS trinkets in the game. That didn't change anyone who was currently wearing it. It just brought it a little bit down in line with some of the other trinkets that we're seeing out there. Nazdiri's Mythic Lash damage was increased by 15%. The Perfidious Projector, its damage increased by 10%. The Screams of Forgotten Sky on death damage has been increased to 15%, and increased by 15%. And was it Ashkama's Shroud of Resolve is now apparently upgradable. It wasn't upgradable for some reason, so now can be upgraded.
Who's out here in 2025 upgrading their BFA cloak? I don't know. But apparently it was bugged and it shouldn't be, and so now it's fixed.
Yep, that's all resolved. So yeah, that's certainly a big part of it. There were some bugs fixed inside the raid where they fixed a bug apparently where in Soul Hunters, Adarius could fail to fall to the ground upon death, preventing the group from looting the corpse. This sounds like a pretty big problem. I'm glad that got resolved. That is not something we ever want to see inside of a raid where you're like, yay, we killed it. We'll just wait for everything to get mailed to someone and then we can figure out what we're doing with loot.
Yeah, not ideal. So I'm glad that got fixed. I did not run into this, thankfully. Adarius fell to the ground and died and we looted him, so that was perfect.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to point out, because I just noticed it didn't make the hotfix blog when it comes to the trinket tuning. There was a post pre-hotfix from Randy that said, we intend for this last round of trinket. We intend for this the last round of trinket tuning for season 3, unless something unexpected occurs, which is worded a little weirdly, but it sounds like they're not planning on further trinket changes. Obviously, sometimes they get more information and then plans change, but
yeah,
I think that's kind of good. I mean, this is the last season of the expansion. I think it's okay to let players have stuff that feels busted and feels good to use. I was kind of shocked that the Brand of Ceaseless Ire didn't get hit with the nerf bat as a result of this. Like when I saw the post that said trinket tuning incoming, I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
I was bracing for big Prot Warrior and brand nerfs coming in this week, and we didn't get them. And they're saying that they're probably not going to make further trinket adjustments. I think it's also good to let the items be what they are, right? Because item acquisition is really fluid. It kind of stinks to put the time in to get a particular item and then have it turn out to be bad because they nerfed it or whatever, right? Or to have something that like you ignored that now they make good. I feel like you got to lock in that item tuning early because that's less fluid than like class tuning or encounter tuning. You can always go change that stuff up down the road, but you want to lock the items in so players can set their expectations and use their time in a way that feels rewarding, I feel like.
I agree, with the exception of we started this episode off with me talking about a trinket that at 704 champ track is better than some mythic trinkets out of the raid. And you get it by purchasing it off a vendor at the end of the delve for 2,000 undercoin. Like, I
don't see a problem with that, though. I think it's fine. It would be worse if it was early in the expansion. I feel like for the last tier of the expansion, I feel like it's okay to have something like that, but that's just me.
I don't think it's okay that someone can get a champ track piece of delve gear that is the piece of gear they will use to kill Mythic Dimensius over top of any of the other mythic gear they see. That feels very weird, but that's the situation we're in. So it's one of those situations where I guess, if they're not going to do any more tuning, they're not going to do any more tuning. It's just, I feel like having situations like that come up with gear feels strange because you're not rewarding the organized content as much. You're rewarding people just going out and doing a delve and purchasing something off a vendor for coin that's, eventually like fairly guaranteed. Obviously now that the vendors are rotating what's in their inventory, you could just get really unlucky and have to run a ton of delves to find it. But you can run them all on ones, I guess, and still get the vendor. But it's one of those cases of,
you have to do nines. The vendor only shows up at 9 and above. So it's decently hard to see it. But yeah, I don't, it is kind of it's an interesting thing because delves have slotted in weird, and it's like, should they provide very high end power? And like Blizzard seems to not be sure if they're okay with that or not yet. Yeah. So I guess we'll see what else develops there. But like on balance, like I don't have a problem with having like a really particularly strong item seated in a mode like that, especially if you have a pretty deterministic way to get it. If you do nines, you'll get this trinket if you're in a healing spec or whatever. I don't know. I feel like that's okay, but it's okay right now because we're at the end and stuff should be allowed to be broken. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. We're not getting a season 4. We're not going to have that 4 months of like, hey, if you're still playing, go nuts, throw these weird combos together, do whatever you want to do. So, I'm glad that they're taking a little bit of a lighter hand with some of the item tuning. And, I do think it's disruptive to change it a lot. So if they're going to do more, I hope they do it soon.
Yeah. All right. As far as War Within developer notes go, we got a big thanks to everyone who has taken the time to try out Legion Remix on the PTR. And based off their feedback, they'll be starting next week with a extended PTR for an additional week. So basically they're just saying, hey, we're going to extend the current thing for an additional week, deploying major improvements with the goal of adding speed, power, and more fun to the mode. So this is Legion Remix. Legion Remix PTR event will end with today's build in order to test our character conversion process. It will return next week for the additional week of testing. If you don't want your character to be converted, please do not attempt to log into your time runner while Legion Remix is down. Oh, okay. So that's interesting. So if you don't want your character converted, don't log into the time runner while Legion Remix is down is a good thing to know, I guess.
Yeah, it's in a very weird kind of limbo state right now because 11.25 PTR is still up, but you cannot time run. So And they also haven't announced, as we're recording right now, like what the changes are going to be. And then we're only getting 1 week apparently on the new testing, which maybe, who knows, they might extend it or whatever. It was supposed to be done on Thursday. This post was from Thursday, I think, when they say today's build or whatever. So yeah, we just don't have a lot of details right now as we're recording this. I think complaints around the Legion Remix testing were that power acquisition felt slow. I think people really wanted to quickly get back to that totally overpowered and broken state in MOP Remix, and I think they were not finding that to be the case. So we'll see, probably next week when we get together to record, we'll have full details on this, and the PTR will be up and testable for a few more days at that point. I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this. I feel like they wanted to roll Legion Remix out as more like of a meatier gameplay mode. They're planning on doing these kind of tiered rollouts, like one patch at a time, almost like a classic launch. Not, hey, the whole expansion's available the day we turn this on, and kind of funnel players into these different activities and have this growing power curve as the phases roll out. And it seems like reaction on PTR was just really not too good to how that felt and how players were feeling about like their power and reward acquisition for what is like a pretty time limited mode. It's supposed to be accelerated. So we'll see where they land. I mean, for me, it's tough. I played some Legion Remix PTR, and I liked some of the ideas of what they were doing. I didn't spend enough time in it to really understand how the power was going to scale up as I did different activities and level my character up and everything. I only got to level 14 or something. I just did kind of the intro experience. I got the artifact weapon. I started getting power and going through the tree. So I never even really got to experience anywhere where I could gauge whether or not it felt slow or it felt kind of sloggy. I'm curious to see what they're going to do and ultimately what the goals for this mode are going to be. I really ultimately did not enjoy the MOP Remix gameplay of like my character is this immortal god that just blasts enemies apart without doing anything, and I just run through content and pick up currency to go buy stuff with. Legion Remix definitely seems like it has more texture than that, but if there's no meat on the bone in terms of the gameplay, it's going to be another situation where I'm probably playing it just to collect everything, but in hindsight, I end up not liking the experience because there's no texture to the gameplay. I'm pushing a button and I'm collecting currency and then I'm buying stuff off a vendor. We'll see. We'll see where I think there's a middle ground between there somewhere. That's what I'm hoping, is that it doesn't go full MOP Remix where nothing matters at all, but it doesn't feel like a mode that you have to sacrifice other stuff you want to do in WoW in order to, power up your character and play and get what you want out of it. It's a delicate balance, but I think it could exist.
The decision or the design around how long it should take a player to earn at least 70% of the rewards that you're putting in, to me, is a really important metric to look at. Like, it's really important for them as devs to look at, okay, if a player was going to commit time to playing this, how many hours do they need to commit, or how many weeks do they need to commit a certain amount of hours in order to accomplish what they want to accomplish with this? And if that is getting the set the set reward appearances that they want, plus 3 mounts and 2 pets or something, like, come up with a metric and figure that out. Because to me, that timeline is like 2 to 2.5 weeks of play. If I can put in 10 hours a week so it's a total of 25 hours of playtime into this event and get like my class set, so I can have the druid appearances that I want, I can get a couple of mounts and some pets that I want, and maybe a fun toy or two or something like that. That sounds really good to me, right? As a sort of reward track thing. To feel like I've accomplished something and finished it, and that's kind of the time commitment I've done. What it felt like with Mists of Pandaria for me, and I was someone who did not dedicate a ton of time to it because it just felt so momentous a hill to climb to try and get the stuff that I wanted to get, that I either had to like be all in on that and throw away the other stuff I was doing in WoW or not. That's what it kind of felt like to me, was not an acceptable thing. It just completely uninspired me from participating in the event. If I feel like I can hop in a couple of nights a week and play some, Legion Blitz and have a really good time doing this, and that feels like each day that I'm playing, I'm getting 20% or 30% towards what I want to accomplish, that feels really good. That feels like it's the right kind of pace and tracking for this alternative gameplay. I don't think this should be designed, in my opinion, around, okay, we want to design this for players who just want to do this, and this is the version of WoW they want to play. I think you're failing, in my opinion, if that's what you're designing it around. This should be something that you want people from the classic community and from the live game community to hop in and have a good time with and hop out. I think that's what you're aiming for. And if it doesn't feel like that's what, this is designed around, if it feels like there's going to be a 2-month event where a month and a half of it is spent trying to earn rewards, that is a bad situation, in my opinion. That's just an automatic, I'm not interested, kind of checked out, situation for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they're adding such cool stuff. Like when they first announced this back in May, I was like, well, I knew this was coming, but I don't know if I really want to do this. Yeah, I went really, really hard with MOP Remix, and I got all the stuff, but at what cost to my own kind of mental state? And I don't know if I want to do this again, but like they're adding so much cool stuff to Legion Remix that it's like I know I'm not going to be able to hold off once it's there. So I just hope it feels good to play. I think one thing that that will really help with, especially with the angle that you're looking at it from, is the fact that you can bank up like 6 days worth of daily activities for big caches of rewards. So you can really kind of play at your own pace in that regard. Like the Weekend Warrior mode that they were kind of calling it when they announced it in that video. That could really work. I think that's a nice innovation. So hopefully that'll feel good. I mean, the weird thing to me was, I think MOP Remix on a daily basis, it was very structured in terms of what you should be doing to get all of your bronze. And also you had the element of you needed to spend a ton of bronze to get your gear to the max item level. And that was what really unlocked the ability to run around and just zap everything and blast through the content and then farm up even more bronze to get all the rewards. At least with the way they're doing this, you'll get gear. Like there is no funneling bronze into item level upgrades, right? You'll get item level upgrades just from playing the game and acquiring better gear and leveling up your character and kind of moving up that ladder. That sounds really good because, that was like a huge first gate. It's like, okay, the first thing you got to do is get enough bronze to upgrade all of your stuff. And that wasn't fun, really.
You're forcing people to choose between the rewards that they're playing the game mode in the first place to get and ease of getting those rewards because of upgrades. Like it was a really weird decision to force people to make of like, hey, you could upgrade gear that's going to be completely irrelevant in 2 months and we're just going to make you vendor to a vendor for gold, or you could buy the mount that you want. And you're like, oh, well, I want to just buy the mount. Okay, but if you buy the mount, then you're not upgrading the gear, which means it's going to be harder for you to earn your next bunch of gold that you want to make, bronze that you want to make, which you would use to then upgrade another piece of your gear until you've upgraded all of your gear. And then once you've upgraded all of your gear, you just are really having an easy time getting bronze. And then you can start earning towards stuff. So how about you spend the first 3 to 4 weeks just earning bronze and upgrading your gear? And then you spend the next 3 to 4 weeks just earning the rewards that you want. And you're like, that is too much time. It's just too much dedication for me.
Yeah, it was strange. It was like in order to really maximize your time in the mode, you had to front load it like significantly. And so this won't be like that, which is good. And also, I didn't really want to do a scenario and a heroic scenario and a dungeon and a heroic dungeon and an LFR wing every single day. I didn't want to do that, but the game kind of funneled you into that. If you wanted to get, a substantial amount of bronze rewards and you wanted to be able to buy the cosmetics, that was what you had to do. That was how you earned it. And that was fine at first, but it got old fast. And then it got to the point where I just wanted to be done with the mode. And so I had like 3 characters going. So I was doing all the stuff I didn't want to do every day times 3. So, I mean, some of this is my own choices. I didn't have to collect everything off the vendor. I'm not even a huge collector, but I just wanted to max out on this mode. I think changing up that structure for Legion Remix is maybe the key to keeping it fun, right? And Legion lends itself well to this because there's a lot more variety of content. Maybe you just go do world quests. You could just have the daily wrapper be the world quest, and you just you do 6 world quests or 10 world quests every day, and then you're covered, and then you could stack those up, play on Saturday and pick a couple of them. And, something like that, I think would be good.
Yeah. That'd be a really neat way to go, is to say the amount of bronze or currency that you can earn in a day towards, or that you can earn in a week towards, buying rewards is X. And you can earn that X amount of currency, with these set activities, and these activities take you no longer than 2 hours or 2.5 hours to do. And then you've maxed out your currency, and anything you do after that is just chance drops and for fun. So if you're like, hey, I really want to farm the mounts off of all the world bosses that are up, then sure, go around and kill the world bosses. And maybe the first time you kill those world bosses, you actually earn enough currency that you're really close to your cap, and you do some world quests and whatnot, and that sort of wraps up the cap, and you've sort of capped out on your currency. However, those world bosses spawn every day and have the ability to drop mounts every day, so you can just log in future times and kill those world bosses if you want, but you're not earning more currency. You sort of capped out on your total currency you can earn for the week. Would be kind of a neat way to go about that, because then you can feel like you're done. You can get on, play for 2.5 hours, and feel like you're done for your purchasables from the vendors' rewards, and anything else you want to earn from drops, like people who wanted to earn the shoulders off of Garrosh and whatnot could go and kill Garrosh over and over and over again and try and get the shoulders if that's what they wanted to do, or they could spend bronze to buy them. And it was that decision, right? But putting a cap on the currency, I think, would allow players to essentially go, hey, I've accomplished the currency reward. If I just do this every week, and it only takes me 2 hours or 2.5 hours to do this every week, by the end of the event, I bought everything off the vendor. That would feel really good.
Yeah, I think something like that would be really cool. Then you give a rolling cap where it's like, this is how much you can get from the weeklies or whatever. This is how much you can get total. And if you're behind, you can catch up by doing more stuff.
Yeah.
There was really cool stuff about MOP Remix, and I'm not suggesting the whole formula needs to go, but they didn't have anything drop from anything you killed, right? Like, you couldn't get the cosmetics from killing stuff. You were killing stuff just for the currency. So,
right.
Yeah, in a world where you have this kind of like this cap that is structured so that if you play up to it, that you can earn all the vendor rewards in advance of the event concluding, then yeah, you could do stuff like, well, we're going to put a drop chance on some stuff out in the world too. And then players could approach it. That helps players manage their time investment or how much they want to do in any given time frame, because like, okay, if I just hit my I forget what they call the daily activities in Remix. I saw the frame and I picked one and I did it, but I forget what it was called. If I just bank those up, I do my world quest or whatever, and I hit my caps, then I know that I'll be able to buy all the stuff I want, and that's as much as I really want to invest into. Right. This mode. Like, I don't want to push Mythic plus 37s because I'm super overpowered. Like, I'm here to collect.
Yeah.
And so, I want to approach it in this way. I think that something like that would be awesome. So hoping for some cool details on changes soon. I'm sure we'll see them by this time next week. I'm sure we'll already have them and we'll be testing this stuff, but Remix is a cool concept, but they can't just run it out like they did with MOP every time. That's at least from my perspective. I think there was a lot of cool stuff that was outweighed by some stuff that really became a drag as the event went on. And I'm hoping they can avoid that stuff with this round for Legion.
Sure. Yeah. I definitely hope they listen to some ideas and we see what they do next. Okay. So we talked Gamescom last week, but we talked Gamescom on Thursday. And there was more panels that happened on Friday. So this is Gamescom Part 2, if you will. So with the Gamescom stuff that happened on Friday, and obviously a little bit that came out on social media on Saturday, since the last time we talked, there have been some developments which answered some of our questions we had last week, as well as some new information that we'll share here. So with Senior Game Director Ian Hazakostas, associated with Game Director Paul Cubitt, there was a systems download developer panel that happened here, where they went a little bit deeper into the Devour Demon Hunter spec and what some of these abilities are. We know that like its Void Ray I-Beam is going to be a 25-yard line attack, so there's going to be some mid-range, as they sort of specified. It's not going to be range DPS in a traditional sense. There'll be a lot of like mid-range fighting in melee and jumping into melee and jumping out of melee and doing outside of melee attacks and that sort of stuff happening. I know there's people who were absolutely loving Collapsing Star as an ability. It's just very cool looking and there's a lot of like rolling damage sort of situations that are happening with the spec. So people were pumped about that. I expect there to be a lot more, breakdowns and dev panels, and especially once alpha hits, changes that happen to the spec. So it's something that we'll keep our eye on, and obviously, keep reporting on as it happens. But the big sort of news thing around it is that Void Elves are now going to become Demon Hunters. There's going to be an unlockable short quest line during the 12.0 pre-launch event that allow people to make those characters. And Devourer spec will also unlock during this period of time. And this just is one of those situations where it means that, yes, if you in the next expansion want to play a Void Elf Demon Hunter, you will be able to have that character ready to go for that expansion launch, as opposed to having to dedicate the first couple days of the expansion to leveling one of these characters and creating one of these characters, which I think is great to see. So I'm very happy about seeing that in there. There was also some teasing that Paul did about new opportunities for other race and class combinations, acknowledging that Alliance is getting a new race and class combination and that Horde isn't, but that those other future things are expected during the World Soul Saga, which basically means to me they have a whiteboard. On that whiteboard are class combinations they want to do, class race combinations they want to do, and they're figuring out how that's going to work and what that's going to look like and when they want to implement it. So, I'd expect to see more news along those lines as well.
Yeah, cool to just get these details. I mean, this is stuff you would expect, right? Because there's precedent for all this, but it's one thing for there to be precedent for it or to expect it, and it's another to have, Paul stand on stage at an industry convention and say that that's how it's going to work. So, yeah, very cool. I have no reason at all to do this, but I'll probably just make a Void Elf Demon Hunter and mess around with it in Devourer spec just for purely aesthetic purposes when this comes out. I mean, I already have 2 Demon Hunters on my account, and I don't even really play Demon Hunter that much anyway. So I don't, there's no real need that I have for this, but it's a new thing to check out. It's just a new flavor. So I'll mess around with it. I don't think I would, play it with any kind of consistency, but it's always cool when a new style comes in, and I'll give it a little spin before expansion comes out.
As far as talents go, we know that we're going to be moving from level 80 to 90 during midnight, which means we're going to be getting 10 new talent points. 3 of those points are going to the class tree, 3 of them are going to the hero tree, and 4 of them are going to the spec tree. And those 4 are going to be spent on what's called a spec tree apex talent. And so you're going to have this big talent point at the bottom that every time you put a point into, it does another large impactful thing. These apparently are optional points. They aren't points you need to spend in here. You can technically spend them as part of the spec tree if that's something you want to do. So I don't really know why people would not put all 4 points into their Apex talent. I think, as we discussed last week, there'd be a failure in design if people did not want to put all 4 points into here, but who knows? It's nice to know these talent points will be fairly optional as far as that goes, as you can technically put them somewhere else if you wanted to. But yes, this is the new layout that we're going to be going for. 10 more levels. You get the 3 more points in both trees. Those trees are getting expanded with this Apex talent point. They're adding 3 new abilities to the 4th lane of the hero tree as well. So you'll be able to technically put some points into those if that's something you're looking to do. In general, a lot of people I've talked to are very excited about this because I'm in one of those situations in Resto Druid where it's like, hey, if I had 1 more talent point, this would feel much better as a spec. It already feels fun, but imagine the fun I could have if I had 1 more talent point I could put into something here. And really what that comes down to is if they removed some of these multi-talent point nodes, that would be great because the multi-talent point nodes just feel bad in a lot of situations. And that's where I would put 1 extra talent point is into a multi-talent point node, and it would make my class feel better, which is good to know. So it's something where them adding more of this would be great. I expect them to do tree revamps. I expect us to see some shuffling of what abilities are in the tree versus what abilities are in people's base kits, which will then change up how the trees look a bit. So I expect all of that to happen, obviously over the next coming months with alpha into beta as they slowly start to roll out more and more of that content. Personally, that's my expectation.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of like, I'm going to see where I would put my 3 new class tree points, because I'll bet you my class tree is not going to look like it does right now in 12.0. And which is kind of unfortunate because it's like the whole idea behind giving you the points is to let you open up these new combos. So if they massively rework everything and you can't actually get the stuff that you wanted together anyway, then what was the point overall? But we'll see. That's just speculation on my part. So maybe they won't mix it up too much. Really cool to see that they're just expanding the hero tree, like getting 3 new talents in every hero tree. And then the Apex talent is an interesting idea. I got to think that, yes, you can put those 4 points wherever you want, but I mean I agree with your stance that, like, if you're not putting all 4 of your points into your Apex talent, then what are we doing? That means that we have a bad Apex talent for this spec, which we probably shouldn't do. But maybe there's situations where I don't know, you want to set up a build for some very specific and weird purpose, like, I don't know, like speed running old raids or something. So you want to just opt in as much movement as possible. You don't care about your Apex points. Like, having those extra points could add some really cool flexibility for builds that aren't related to doing endgame content. So that could be a cool element, versus, oh, we're adding the Apex talent, it's this other tab, and you put your 4 new points in there, right? Then there's no flexibility. This way, depending on what you're trying to do with your playtime, maybe you open up some different pathways that way. So it seems cool. Just, a couple quick asides or thoughts on this. Like, first of all, hero talents just kind of continuing and expanding makes me think they really missed a storytelling opportunity around hero talents in War Within. Like, we didn't discover these powers. Nobody taught them to us. We just leveled up and then we got a new thing in the tree. Yeah. I feel like that could have been an opportunity to really bring those fantasies more forward into the story and into the game world instead of just being a UI element. And especially see them continue to be expanded. When they were announced, it's like, well, at least it's going to get shut off when we get out of War Within or whatever. But it's like, this is a part of our identity here, So I feel like they missed an opportunity with that a little bit. And also, I know, like, when they brought these when they brought in the class and spec trees in Dragonflight, and then when they brought in hero talents in War Within, the idea was like, we don't want to massively revamp this all the time. We don't want to have a ton of bloat. We think the system is going to work out. And now we're like the 3rd step down the line. And it's like, well, what's going to happen when we go from 90 to 100? Like, how many more points are we going to get? How much bigger the tree is going to get? How many more elements are going to be tacked into the trees? Like, I think the system is really cool and flexible. I've enjoyed it the last 2 expansions. The stuff coming in Midnight looks cool, but I can't help but think, just from having played the game for so long, like, how close do we approach another big reset, where it's like every few expansions, they kind of massively rethink how these class builds work. And I don't think there's any permanent solve anyway. And I think as long as you come up with cool stuff, players will come along with you. I don't think it's some massive problem that they need a rigid structure that works forever. It's not even possible. But it is just interesting to think about now that we're this far into the Dragonflight kind of class revamp. That was really the hard line, I think, in class design was Dragonflight. And now we're this far down. And it's like, this is getting a little complex now. Now it's starting to get weird. And where do they go from this step? Those are just the things that occurred to me as Paul was talking about it on stage. Yeah,
I mean, that certainly is a problem for down the line. And I do think class bloat is a big issue with World of Warcraft and has been for a long time. And button bloat is also a big issue. So I do think that there's opportunities for them to cut things back and roll things more just into baseline for class. You can reduce nodes by having things that, are fair, like Innervate could become just a literal class ability as opposed to being something you have to talent point into. Same thing with a certain kind of Dispel, those sorts of things that were added into that class tree to be something to have you put a point into when it was something that was baseline before is something that they could certainly look at, making baseline again, pulling out of that tree to sort of reduce the clutter in that tree as something that they could look at doing. So there's a lot of options they can do with it, but I'm with you on that concern down the road. Okay, as far as the prey system goes, you opt into hunting during the system, so it's something you choose to participate in, and you're pursuing those powerful targets. We talked about all that stuff, but the new things revealed in here is that it's not going to be something where you basically just go out and click on all the footprints that you can find, and then once you've clicked on 8 of the footprints, here comes the big creature, and you're going to be fighting the big creature. It's more like, no, you're going to be out traveling and finding clues, and at some point, it just is going to attack. And you're going to have to fight it, and it's going to be this unpredictable kind of situation when you're just out in the world. So keep that in mind. This is the way they're designing this. I like it. I think this is based off of, in my opinion, the delve situation where you're just doing a delve and sometimes the boss can just show up out of the blue and attack you. I think that's kind of where this comes from, because it's laid out in a very similar way of there's just going to be an element of you're minding your own business, collecting, worms in Koresh, and then all of a sudden a portal opens and here comes the giant bear cat that you were hunting, and it's found you and is attacking you, kind of thing. Like that's what it feels like this is going to do. So certainly something that's a different kind of system for folks to participate in. I think it'll be kind of cool overall.
Yeah, the details we got sound pretty nice, actually. Just adding some more texture to the outdoor world is always good. I mean, I love doing outdoor content. It's just I like to just zone out and just go through a big menu of world quests or go around and collect stuff or whatever. And this sounds like it'll add some interesting texture to that. Sometimes it sounds like the stuff that your target may attack you at intervals. It isn't like we're immediately jumping to the confrontation where you win and then you go get your rewards, right? Like they may be harassing you as you're doing other stuff, setting traps for you, even stuff like that. It sounds like it's going to encompass the 4 midnight zones, but I'm wondering, I assume it'll expand to whatever other zones we go to throughout midnight. Maybe there'll be opportunities to go to other places, right? We know there's the campaign stuff where you go around to older zones. So maybe there could be some opportunity there. When you opt into the harder difficulties, now your targets have torments on them, so they have additional abilities that are going to make them harder to defeat, more stuff you have to manage while you're fighting them. On hard and nightmare difficulties, it's a one-on-one final fight against the target once it happens. Other players can't help you. All that stuff sounds pretty cool. Like I said, I like to spend time in the outdoor world anyway, so ways to add texture to that and rewards sounds really good. They gave the MOG, the examples of the MOG rewards, the mounts and stuff that we had seen initially from the initial reveal video. But Paul did say they're planning to tie this into character power. This is going to be part of your outdoor row in the vault, and that it's going to scale with the difficulty you do, and that it goes all the way up to hero tier if you're doing nightmare. So yeah, I mean that could be a really cool way to balance out I'm spam running delves and I need bountiful coffer keys because I'm trying to fill the hero row on this tune. Having multiple ways to do that, and also just maybe they can do some cool stuff with the torments where the enemies feel really interactive to fight. It presents kind of a cool and unpredictable challenge in the outdoor world. I mean, this is something I'm definitely going to be doing on a weekly basis, so hopefully it's fun. I mean, I think there could be cool opportunity to add flavor with the targets, right? And really incorporate the different targets that you're hunting into the story or into what's happening in the game world. So yeah, I like that, this is another expansion where they're trying to find ways to incorporate the outer world. They have this higher level challenge, higher level reward that isn't all the way up, but it gives you different ways to play the game and different things you can do solo, in small groups, just outdoor content with lower stakes. You could kind of more do at your own pace without an organized group or whatever. Really what it seems like is just a layer on top of world quests, essentially, right? Because you opt into this and then you probably go out and you're doing world quests or you're gathering whatever, and then that's as you're doing that, now you're sort of engaged in this cat and mouse game with your prey target. So it sounds really cool. I hope that it is fun to play. It's like I said, I'll be doing it for sure on a weekly basis, so I hope it's cool.
Yeah, it's going to be something that certainly occupies our time throughout the expansion, so hopefully it is a fun thing to participate on a regular basis and feels rewarding in that sort of way as well. So yeah, we're looking forward to it. Okay, as far as the events go for the different zones, we did get a recap on what some of these would look like, about that Aldor, I guess they described it as an Aldor or Scryer kind of feel inside of the Eversong Woods and Silvermoon, of faction against faction, and which one are you supporting and how is that going to work and how's that going to feel, doing different tasks for either of them. We heard about Zulaman having this fast-paced collectathon kind of situation where if you're, it is profession-based, you don't have to have the profession, but there might be some sort of benefit to you having a profession of whatever it is you're collecting, and you sort of go through all the 4 zones. And even though it's themed around Zulaman, you're sort of going to those 4 zones and doing this collection of gathering things for them. And the Harandar area. There's the lore seeking kind of journeys that you go on where you're, stepping to the past and using magical paintings to sort of hear tales. And this reminded me a lot of, we used to have those events where you would basically become a vehicle inside of a older character and sort of relive a past event. I think we're going to have stuff similar to that where you're becoming an older character and reliving a past event with different action bars and different buttons that you're pressing to do different abilities and defeat different, characters and participate in these things. And then the Void Storm is going to be like a tower defense kind of situation almost. Like you're setting up these defenses in an area and waves of mobs are going to be coming at you. It's a public event. So there's going to be a lot of other players there trying to defend against these waves of void enemies that are attacking you. It's like a Legion invasion, but like with the invasion targets actually having a goal of what they want to accomplish, not just wandering around in an area. So they're sort of coming through and then attacking an area and you're trying to defend that area. So it'll be neat to see what sort of defenses you can set up, because they talked about setting up different ones. And if there's like, ballistas you can get into that fire on them or whatever that is, it'd be kind of neat to see how that all ends up working and what the reward system or completion system looks like around some of these events that we're going to be participating in.
Yeah, hopefully some kind of big gnarly void weapons, right? Because it's going to be very void elf themed for the assault wave defense stuff. But yeah, I think world events, public events, whatever we want to call them, it's become a big part of WoW in the last few years. And I think it's been a mixed bag. There's been some really good ones. There's been some kind of rough ones. I think War Within sort of eliminated some of the worst like pain points from some of the Dragonflight ones and kind of dialed it down a bit more into that, like about 7-8 minutes. I really feel like it's a sweet spot for these kinds of things. Beyond that, it really starts to feel sloggy, especially if it's some completion-based thing and then player count starts dropping off and then you don't have a zone full of people doing it. And, those kind of things can be kind of rough. So hopefully none of these are like that and are more flexible or designed to be shorter experiences, because I think that's where a public event really sings, right? Like what you want is to attract people over to your event that's about to count down, like as they're out in the zone doing stuff, and then they come over and dip in and do the event and then go back to what they were doing. You don't want it to be a thing where people are running through this experience for 15 minutes or something, like following the tree around in the Emerald Dream. Like that was such a rough way to cap off Dragonflight. That event was just so sloggy no matter what. Even if you had a ton of people, it didn't even really speed up significantly. So, it's obviously a thing that they want to lean into a lot in recent years. We've seen it a lot the last 2 expansions. Here comes another round of them. It sounds like cool variety. Like they're
very different things.
It sound like very different things we're going to be doing in each of these events. So that's cool. I think that helps. And so, I mean, again, this will be something you want to have on your radar because it'll be an important part of the overall loop on a weekly basis. And hopefully they're fun. And I think keeping them brief is a good way to keep them fun.
Yeah. Now, the leveling experience we already covered a lot of, but what we didn't cover as much of and we got more details on is for what the experience is like for returning players. So when you're doing a returning player, if you are a returning player, you're going to be faced with the option of removing distractions like your full quest log, bags, all the confusing talents, all that stuff just gets removed from your character. It's going to start you off with like killing gnolls and then moving on to killing ogres and then killing cultists. There's like a whole training regime you sort of go through. It's designed to remind players of how to play their character. You're going to be able to drop in and out, so you don't have to complete the experience if you don't want to. If once you get more comfortable, if that's earlier on for you, you can sort of just opt out of the experience and just continue what you want to do. There'll be a skywriting tutorial, which I think is critically needed for players coming back. For those who've never experienced it before, just understanding how that works is important. And my favorite part of this entire thing, there's going to be a tutorial on how to interrupt targets that they're just putting into this. I almost feel like that should be like a mandatory thing that happens when you log into your character when they first add this in. Just everyone has the 5-minute here's how you interrupt thing of when you first log into your account. Because based off of what I've been experiencing in Mythic Plus, it is a critical issue that is very, very, big and important to have that happen. So yes, we'll be seeing a tutorial on how to interrupt targets as part of this catch-up thing as well.
Love that.
Yeah.
It should be, you click the social contract and then you go right into the interrupt tutorial.
Interrupt panel.
Those are two steps you have to do. You must be this tall to ride this ride.
Exactly. These changes are all coming in 11.2.7 as well. We don't have to wait all the way till 12.0 for this to kick in for returning players.
I love this because a lot of times that the returning players start really kicking the tires at the end of the expansion.
Yeah.
And explaining to them that, like, well, you have to wait until you see the date for the pre-patch and then you can have this stuff. Like, I think rolling in more changes earlier is a lot better. Yeah. Because people get excited and they want to play, but it's like, well, this wasn't actually the quote unquote right time to start playing again. Yeah. That's bad. And so the earlier that you can make big changes to smooth that out for returning players or for new players is really great. They sound like cool changes. And I think I don't know, it's a tricky thing because WoW is so broad, it's so huge, it's so long running, it's so dense. Are they ever really going to be able to solve the new player experience and the returning player experience problem? I don't know. I don't know if it's possible to really fully solve it, but the more stuff you add to ease that journey, the better. Like it doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Just because you can't get the perfect solution doesn't mean you shouldn't add stuff like this. So I don't know. We've seen so many revamps to this over the years, and even, the big Exiles Reach revamp that's coming in. That system is only 5 years old, right? So they've been trying to figure out some kind of solution for this for a long time. But I think it makes sense to kind of funnel players through. Like Dragonflight is basically step one. It's weird. Like it might be weird to longtime players, like you're starting there, but to drop you into like what's going on in the game, what you need to know about like why we're doing what we're doing, who the characters are, it just makes sense, right? Like Dragonflight really was kind of the prequel to the World Soul saga. And then, this lets players drop into a place in the story that makes sense, that came after kind of a big reset, and get their bearings and then move along into where, ongoing players have been living for a while. So I hope it works. It's not going to be the last round of changes we see to it for sure, but the perfect is the enemy of the good, and these are good changes.
The other thing just to mention about this real quick is they've actually defined the War Within catch-up as a couple hours long experience. So for those who are like, man, I spent like 8 hours trying to do quests with War Within to try and catch up on the campaign, they've shortened that down to what they've now defined as a couple hours long, which is good to hear. So that'll help folks out a lot as well. Okay, with this new battleground, the Slayer's Rise battleground, where it's 40 versus 40 happening in the Voidstorm, and this is basically like two warlords of the Voidstorm fighting each other, and you're on opposite teams and fighting it out. The zone itself is apparently going to be an outdoor zone accessible as part of the Voidstorm, and there's going to be world quests and war mode world quests inside of this zone. So the way I have to picture this based off of the description is this will be an area that while you're out in the Voidstorm doing what you're doing, you can just enter into, and when you just fly into it, it essentially puts you into a 40 versus 40 instance of that area where you're then completing world quests and stuff in that area. Because there's no way to keep it 40 versus 40 if it's just like an actual PvP outdoor zone, because there'd be more or less people flying in and out of that all the time. But I have to assume when you fly into it, it basically cues you into going into this experience to participate in it.
That I don't know, because I imagine that you'll access the Slayer's Rise BG through your traditional PvP pane, right? It should be in the Epic BG's menu. I feel like the outdoor stuff will probably just be separate from like an ongoing battle. Like we had Wintergrass back in the day, right? Which was sort of this asynchronous BG that it was kind of just ongoing. It would happen on a timer. Yeah. It was out in the world. I don't think it'll be like that. It'll be PvP zone, and it'll have questing, including war mode questing, they said. So I think it'll be like a separate thing, but just the same like geography. You'll be in the same visual space, but one is an instance, and one is it's a part of the Voidstorm zone. They haven't done a new Epic BG in a long time, and the way they described it sounds pretty cool. I like the idea that there's sort of this PvE element to it, because you're recruiting creep camps, basically, if we're going back to Warcraft 3 and Dota and all that. you have the opportunity to do that, right? In a 40v40, you can add all kinds of different activities to do in the space. So that could be really cool. And I feel like since BFA, war mode and outdoor PvP has been really de-emphasized. Like finally in 11.2, we have a place to do it, like a thing that directs you to a world PvP quest. But that's been the first time since BFA, really, and it's really not a very big presence even at the end of War Within. So I'm interested to see it. I'm not a big PvPer, as any regular listener knows, but I do enjoy world PvP because it's the thing that's the most fun to do as a tank compared to instance PvP. So, a space where that gameplay is occurring and rewarded and expected sounds pretty cool. So that could be a neat addition with along with the Epic BG coming in.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be curious to see how they do it, because even with Winter Grasp now, if you fly into that zone, you get queued for the battleground. So it's a very different kind of feeling. So I don't know. We'll see how it all plays out once we start to get more of the alpha and stuff rolling for it. Training grounds. This is Arathi Basin, Silvershard Mines, and Battle for Gilneas in permanent comp stomp modes that you can just queue for. These are going to be training grounds where you're able to essentially queue into these battlegrounds and fight against advanced AI bots. So for those of us who have been saying they need to have comp stomp actually be a thing that you can queue for regularly, it is coming. That is what the training grounds are going to be. I don't know if this means that the comp stomp brawl is coming out of the actual rotation. I would assume it was, and that we will essentially then see that rotation shorten, which means we'll see more brawls in a shorter period of time, which has been something that we've also talked about, them not really, them sort of hitting a bloat point where you only see one every 4 to 5 months kind of idea. So it'll be good to see all that happen. This is an overall great change, I think, coming in for folks who just want to blow up AI bots on a regular basis.
Yeah, super cool. I'm pretty sure that the, hey, make comp stomp a permanent thing sentiment has been echoed on this show many times over the years since they started doing comp stomp. It's only 3 BGs in the pool, but still, that gives you some variety of like learning different maps and different modes. And I mean, in other games that I've played, like with PvP modes, I enjoy the versus AI from time to time. I'm not like I just said, I'm not a PvPer in WoW really, but maybe with this available on a weekly basis, it's like, well, oh, it's Battleground bonus week? Huh, can I do my training grounds to get credit towards that? Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll participate in that and just get the rewards from it and just have a bit of a different experience. Whereas now it's like I'm definitely not doing that. I might do it in this case. And it's also for people who want to get into BGs, but it's intimidating or it's hard to learn what to do. At least this gives you an idea for the overall flow of a match and what the maps look like and get used to moving around them. I mean, there are people who've been playing Arathi Basin for, when did it come out? 2005? So, that could be, if you're a new player or you're new to PvP, that can be a pretty big knowledge gap to overcome. And I'm not saying that this is going to do that, but at least it gives you a space that you can go in and play and experience and start really immersing yourself into what WoW Battlegrounds are supposed to be. So it's cool. I love it. I'm glad that they're making this a more permanent thing. And yeah, I wonder if you would think that this would just this would make it so that comp stomp would be out of the brawl rotation. The brawl rotation is a nice and tidy 12-week setup though. So, do they end up adding a new one in? Do we get our first new brawl in a long time? Do they end up shortening the rotation to keep it an even number? I guess we'll see. They didn't say anything about that, but these are kind of, I think, natural questions with, we're getting an AI versus advanced AI bots mode. That's kind of, the next logical question, but We'll see. I'm glad they're doing this. It's, I will probably take advantage of it occasionally. And I think it's huge for people that want it. You have a PvP mode. You should have a versus bots mode.
The UI is also going to be getting some updates. We'll see nameplates come in with a customizable way to see buffs and debuffs on nameplates, as well as a call out or a highlight of some kind for lethal casts, so that people know which ones they really need to be hitting their interrupt buttons for. And basically, Ian just came out and said they shouldn't need an add-on or external guide. The game should be doing that naturally for this to happen. So for those of us who use Plater as an example, Plater has a lot of different functionality to it, which I don't think this will necessarily replace, but this will give the average player the tools that people just fundamentally need that they get from Plater, where it's like, hey, here's a, here's an easy way to see that your debuff are on all the targets that need to have this debuff. Here's an easy way to see that the character that you're fighting against has used a shield or has a fear on them or has a stun on them. Here's an easy way for you to see, whether or not you need to be interrupting this spell versus another spell. Like that, those sorts of things become much more visual to players, and that is going to be overall great. Along with that, we're getting a damage meter, where this, is as Ian said, the singular most popular add-on used across World of Warcraft. So they know they need it, and you really shouldn't need an external tool to basically show you what DPS is happening inside of a group. So there's something that they're going to have to work on as far as the level of customization in this. I like to see, personally, I regularly check deaths and what happened to someone when they died on a damage meter. I check their damage, obviously, is a useful thing to check. The healing done is also useful to check who that healing was done to, why it was done that way, what spells did it, what trinkets did it. Those sorts of things are also very useful to see. Interrupts is another big one to see who's actually pressing the buttons and doing interrupts. And then damage done to particular mobs. So during raid encounters, often it's like, hey, the damage focus needs to be on the adds more so than the boss. Who's doing the most damage to the adds versus who's doing the most damage to the boss. Those are great things to have inside of a damage meter. Right now, they've just called this a damage meter, which makes me think it does one of those things, which means it wouldn't replace all of them. So we'll have to see what they actually, get into as far as that kind of finite changes go to. But those are the things to me that I use mine for the most on a regular basis. So if they could at least hit those points, that would be really big for me to be able to look at those breakdowns on a regular basis just by, right clicking and changing what view is on my damage meter, or having multiple of these windows open to track multiple of those things at the same time and see them all happening. So hopefully that's what we end up seeing happen.
Yeah, I think it's great to have server-side damage meters and have that just be an official part of the game. But also, we're pretty accustomed to the functionality that comes with something like details at this point, which is a lot. It gets really into combat data and lets you break it out in many different ways. So if this doesn't include that, then it's not going to replace details for a lot of people at launch. But I mean, this is also an ongoing project, right? Yep. We know it's not going to be like, well, these are going to come in and that's going to be it forever. But hopefully it's not just like, here are DPS meters, here's who's sending the most damage to the server. That won't be too useful for too many people, but it's still better than not having anything in the baseline game. The like the example Ian gave about you shouldn't need to rely on something outside the game to tell if your new build is doing more damage is the perfect justification for having the simplest baseline damage meter possible, just so any player can turn it on and see, oh, this does this much damage and this does that much damage. Okay, great. And for a lot of players, that's all they really need, and that's all they really care about, and that's all they're ever going to use. So that's fine. But yeah, in the interest of I don't know, having the in-game, the out-of-box UI compete with what we're accustomed to from add-ons, this needs to be very robust, I feel like, to compete with something like Detail. So we'll see. The plates thing, I think the in-game plates have needed an overhaul for a really long time.
Yeah.
Doing these baseline updates hopefully will be really good. I mean, I actually don't really like plate add-ons, and I haven't really used them consistently over the years. I just don't like them. I don't like the way they look, and I don't like the way that they work. That doesn't mean that I like the baseline plates either. So I'm hoping that they could come up with something streamlined here that tells you what you need to know without being something you really have to manage. It's definitely overdue, though. I mean, plates have been they're so important, but they've never really been great, I don't think, in the baseline UI ever in the history of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, the most informative thing that the baseline UI had for the longest time was whether or not there was a silver dragon around that particular frame that allowed you to go, hey, this is a more elite mob that's going to hurt more. Like, it took long enough for us to get actual health numbers and not just percentage numbers on boss health and that kind of like that. Having those options were things that they slowly added, but I don't think they've added anything really since then. So it's good to see them start to embrace this more and start to work on it. On top of that, boss alerts are something that they're actively building into Midnight. So in Midnight, we should expect there to be timeline reminders for major critical abilities that are coming up. We should expect there to be alerts if you're targeted by something. We should expect there to be like just a lot more functionality of the boss alert system in the game so that people are not relying on bigwigs or deadly boss mods or any of these other mod things to really fill in those gaps for them. I'm assuming this is a system you can turn on and off during a toggle inside the game. I personally have really stopped using bigwigs and deadly boss mods and focus primarily right now. I use liquid reminders and I build my own boss mod is what that sort of allows you to do. It gives you a timeline. It shows you where the major abilities are going to be happening, and I can then insert alerts where I want them to be for those abilities, for what I want to do in reaction to them. So if that's a, hey, I need to move, or hey, I need to watch out, or hey, I need to, run to this place or move to this marker, those things I can add as voice add things that I can add currently. On top of that, if I wanted to, I can have it tell me to use a certain ability. If I want to bark skin every time this thing happens, I can choose to do that. If I want to use certain cooldowns at certain times, so this is where my tranquility will be, this is where my convoke is, I can add those things in, and you can sort of customize out your own timeline of reminders. That is great inside of liquid reminders. If they can move in that direction, since they talk about a timeline of major abilities coming up, if they allow us to start adding in hey, use this ability at this time inside of a fight because you now have the timeline built. If they can start leaning into that direction, I think this will be huge for players. So they have the easy mode where basically, hey, you just turn it on. It reminds you when these abilities are coming up. But if you want to add in your own custom pins, basically, you can. And that would be really neat if they could add that in there as functionality as well.
Yeah, I mean, what he showed on stage was what I'm assuming is like a mock-up screenshot. Maybe it was like a prototype screenshot that's actually working, but it kind of had like on the the right side of the screen, it sort of had the ability timeline. So it was kind of scrolling and you could see what what abilities were next in the sequence that the encounter was going to do. So it'd be cool to see as this develops and as it comes in, if there's customization you can do, or if it's just a toggle on or off. But yeah, I mean, it's another thing that I expect will be heavily iterated on once it's out and everything. But I mean, this stuff is planned to be coming in Midnight, and they will, continue to develop it once it's out.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just giving players more information baseline about what a boss is doing, what's happening, what they're supposed to be doing is huge. You should be able to at least do that basic stuff without any kind of a mod. And you never really have been. I mean, there once in a while there'd be a chat message or something, right? Or like some kind of text on the screen would pop up, but that's been the extent of it in terms of the out of box stuff. So it's cool they're doing this. This could end up being really robust and powerful if it ends up being customizable and plus like something you don't have to manage across, individual players. Oh, my thing wasn't updated, so my timers are off and whatever. It's like the server itself is controlling this, so that could be if they can make it powerful enough, then it would be great because you wouldn't have to spend a lot of time managing and tweaking it. Maybe just customize where it appears, or maybe add either emphasize or de-emphasize certain elements of the timeline or whatever. Yeah, there's so much potential there. It's great that they're finally doing it and acknowledging that it's something that they probably should have done a long time ago.
Yeah, and they can do pretty well now. There's so many examples out there of ones that work and work well. They can pretty much pull what they want from those to design their own element that I think would work really well for players. Okay, last but not least, transmog. We actually got a little bit more information about the transmog system. You already know that you can like lock in different items to different slots and build out sets. And we talked about like based off the UI we saw, you presumably be able to unlock more outfits by spending gold. That's how it sort of had been laid out a bit. So that part we already kind of knew to a certain degree, but now we're getting a little bit more information around tying outfits towards specific situations, which is great to know. So if you want a particular set or outfit that's like for different racial forms or professions or specializations or, certain movements, going to different locations like your house or a rest area, or the character select screen has a different outfit than out in the open world, or when you enter a delve, versus entering a raid versus entering arenas. You can actually build out these outfits for those situational times. And when you put your character into that situation, your outfit will automatically change, which is very cool. So super excited to hear about that. Really glad that they're moving in this direction with transmog. It's all just exciting stuff to allow players to have this level of customization. It's going to be super exciting.
Yeah, I mean, this is the biggest, by far the most significant upgrade to the system since it came in late Cataclysm.
Yeah.
It's just really been kind of the same thing this whole time, and we've seen examples of other games do it, and I feel like there's been room to improve transmog for a while, and this is going to be huge. I do think I'm curious to see what the overall gold costs are going to be. I'm assuming that buying new outfit slots is going to be done with gold, right? And what we see in the UI that they posted, which again is in progress, but to save an outfit will cost a gold cost, which seems similar to current gold cost for mogging, a full set of armor or whatever. And then you have currently you can just make as many outfits as you want, and then you can save them and mog stuff to them. But there's clearly a thing that says like purchase a outfit slot in the UI now, so I assume that it's going to be kind of like a double gold cost to get set up, where you need to buy the outfit slot and then you need to set how you want it to look and then pay the gold cost for that. But then it's set and you can swap to it with no cost, indefinitely. So just kind of moving around that gold sync element of it, but it should be, once you have it set up, like it's going to be a lot cheaper in terms of the gold cost than it has been. And I think it's the perfect time to bring in the situational, like dynamic transmog when you're bringing in housing, right?
Yeah.
I think players will really like having that sort of ability to set up your more casual set, so that when you're in your house, you're not like in full armor with your full, face guard on and all your weapons on or something. You might want to hide some of that stuff or switch it to. They've spent now the last like year plus putting in these sort of sets that are like civilian clothes, or like, they put in the sweatsuits and stuff like that. It's not stuff that you'd really be thinking of like your character wearing in the battle. This is the perfect place to align these two things, have the transmog system work with the housing system. It's really cool. I mean, you see the list of stuff that you can set for the dynamic mog, the situational mog, and you immediately just start thinking, oh, well, I'm going to do this, and this with my character and make these sets for these situations. Like, it's awesome. Again, it's the kind of thing that's probably overdue, but you know what? We're getting to a point now where they're able to start checking these things off the list while also delivering compelling content on a regular basis, right? Like, they're checking that housing thing off the list after all these years. They're fixing transmog stuff, bringing it more up to date, modernizing it. They're finally bringing in these UI features. This is all stuff that I'm sure people on the team would have loved to pay off 5-10 years ago or more, and it just wasn't a possibility. But now we're starting to actually see these things, and it's going to be really cool having this stuff come in Midnight. We're getting a lot of these kinds of changes to just the way that you experience the game, right? Not necessarily around a particular piece of content or like a play style, but just the way that you move through the world and how it looks to you. Like, that stuff is really important. I think to the modern player, that kind of element is more important about a game than some maybe anything else, right? Like, players really want to have an experience they feel like they can customize and that they can express themselves through it. And I think bringing all this stuff in is fantastic for that. I think it's going to resonate with maybe a new generation of players. That is maybe the goal here, right? Is to show that stuff off and go, yeah, like you can express yourself the way you want to inside this game. You can play the game that you want to play within it, and that's really cool.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing how that all plays out over the next little bit when we start seeing alpha, which they mentioned is going to be in a few weeks, and then beta following up sometime after that. And exciting fall is all they've really told us. Outside of that, Midnight, we know it's going to be early 2026. So hopefully we get some announcements about alpha in the coming week, and we can start seeing what that timeline is going to look like about moving into beta and getting more people in there to see it.
Yeah, probably pretty soon, right? Because we're already a week plus out from this panel, and we didn't hear anything this week. So a few weeks probably means like 3 or 4 at the absolute earliest. But maybe this week coming up, we get details about like what alpha is going to entail and when it's going to start. That could be possible.
Yeah, could be. All right, with that, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. And today I'm giving a special shout out to Arajian, Bradley, Bruce, Chris, James, Garrett, Kapawi, and Shorel. Thank you so much for all that you give towards the show, as well as the rest of our patrons who contribute towards the show, both new and old. We appreciate you. All those funds have gone towards keeping those archives online, keeping the show happening every week, and it wouldn't happen without all of you. Our Patreon, if you want to jump in and support the show as well, you can do so at patreon.com/thestartingzone. I suggest doing that from your computer as opposed to your phone. The phone app companies like to take extra cuts of money from you and don't give them to us. So just keep that in mind. You might end up paying 30% more if you sign up over a phone or whatnot, and that doesn't go anywhere but into the pockets of those large corporations. So if you want to support the show, I recommend on your computer going to patreon.com/thestartingzone and signing up there. A shout out and thank you to our newest patron this week, David H. Thank you so much for hopping in there and supporting the show. We appreciate you, and looking forward to seeing you in the Discord and whatnot.
Absolutely. Welcome aboard, David. Glad to have you with us. Thank you for supporting the show. It means a lot. And if you like today's episode, thank a patron.
Yeah. With that, I guess we'll switch into the tail end of the show here, which is if you've enjoyed this episode of The Starting Zone, consider heading on over to your iTunes or Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. They really help out our show, and we love reading them here from our listeners when we can find them. We all those services have just slowly been shutting down, even the ones I was like, I will do a trial of this, and then it shut down. So it's unfortunate. But yeah, we'll see if we can find something better for pulling those reviews. But yeah, your iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, we appreciate all those. They do help us out. If you've been leaving them, we appreciate it. That's going to wrap up episode 699 of The Starting Zone. If you'd like to check out the show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com. Reach out to us on Blue Sky at thestartingzone.bsky.social, over on Twitter at thestartingzone, or you can join our Discord server by going to thestartingzone.com/discord. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
You can find me on socials. I'm on Twitter over at Shieldwald, and you can find me on Blue Sky at jlucas.bsky.social. Always checking both sites, mostly post stuff to Blue Sky, but come say hi either way. You can find video channels at twitch.tv/Shieldwald and youtube.com/Shieldwald. I will be streaming Raid and Keystone stuff Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Sundays generally. Maybe back to co-streaming to YouTube this week since drops are ending pretty soon. I think we got like a couple days left on this current drops campaign. So, we'll do that for a bit. Once that's over, I want to try co-streaming again. Been a while since I pushed to YouTube, but we'll, maybe this week once the drops are done.
Yeah. If you're trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey, over on Blue Sky at SpencerHD.bsky.social, over on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD, or on YouTube at youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.